Hello, fictional. Welcome to the crossover What Ifs. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Ty Lee, Temari and Suki? Part 1. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. It was a cold night in Ba Sing Se. Wind was blowing people's items off their night market stand and the kid salvaging the discarded objects. On a utility pole a man was crouched on it, surveying the town of his home. His electric blue hues peering down on some homeless people that were just scraping by. He used his incredible control over the earth to see from the pole. He could see kids being beaten for stealing, another woman being sexually assaulted by a pervert, and a pack of dogs feasting on one of their own kind. What a dreadful place. The man with blue eyes thought. He decided to handle these petty crimes in his city. Jumping off the utility pole the man ran across houses with noiseless steps, quickly changing directions. First he jumped to the left, once he got some distance he pulled out a grapple hook and hooked it onto another utility pole and swung into the alley where the 3 kids were being beaten up. 2 were male, while the last was female. This is what you get. One of the men the kid stole from shouted, stepping on the feminine-looking boy's arm. An ashy blonde man dropped from above in front of the kids, putting some space between them and the man. "Who are you?" another man asked, while holding the girl by the hair. She had a bloody nose along with her hair being almost torn out. "No one important." The blonde man slammed his foot into the alleyway floor and broke into a sprint for the man holding the girl. He performed a 540 kick to the man, dropping the girl and bounced off him into a somersault kick onto the second member's shoulder and finished his assault by grabbing the last man by the neck and pushing him into the wall. "What are you doing?" the first man asked, holding his cheek. The blonde encased them in earth before saying, "My job." He then knocked each of them out. People these days can be incredibly annoying. Justice is what will meet them on the other side of their crimes. The blonde said in a monotone. "Thank you, mister." The girl thanked politely and offered him some dirty bread. The man leaned down, he pulled his mask off, showing a handsome face marred by 3 whisker-like birthmarks. "Pretty," the little girl with the bread said before reaching out to touch his cheek. He led her and caught the hands of the other boys inside his black cloak. He takes the bread and drops 2,000 yuan casually and jumps to the rooftops, intent on stopping the assault a couple buildings down. "Spend it wisely, Rugrats," the man thought while landing on the ledge of another building. "Stop," the quite beautiful woman shrieked while thrashing underneath the dirty man. She kicked his balls, but he just sat there above her. "Sorry sweetheart, I've lost the feeling of pain a long time ago." The old man drunk on liquor most likely slurred out. "Help." The man from earlier quietly jumped out of the earth, silently peering over the man's shoulder. "I hate swine like you," he said into the man's ear. "Hey bud, wait your turn with the bitch." His immediate reply was an elbow to the back of his head. "Ow. Hey, you're gonna pay for that." The man pulled out a pocket knife and ran after the blonde, while the brunette woman ran out the alley. "We all are sinners that must pay for our despicable crimes against the world," the blonde replied while parrying the man's blade. "I ain't so good with riddles." "Don't worry, you won't remember to figure out this riddle," the blonde said in a hypnotic tone before punching the pervert into unconsciousness. "Now rest in peace." The man slipped into the ground before tunneling towards the Earth King's palace. "Those dogs are following nature, eat one's young for nutrients, and so the body will remain inside. You can be cold sometimes, big brother." Flashback 5 years ago. Fire Nation. "Ha. Be more fluid with your first strike," a blonde boy commanded while parrying another strike from a red-haired 9-year-old. "Hiya." The redhead did what his brother said, being more fluid and smooth with his swings. A blonde kid about the age of 12 and a redhead about the age of 9 were sparring with Bakans. The blonde was coaching the younger boy with the correct strikes and motions. "Ugh. I'm doing what you're telling me to do, but I can't do it," the red-haired boy said with a huff, throwing his Bakan on the grassy floor. The blonde smiled and picked up the beginner's weapon. "Menma, how are you going to be able to handle a real blade if you can't perform the correct katas with a Bakan?" the blonde asked. The redhead huffed again, puffing his cheeks out with an embarrassed blush. He whispered something under his breath that his brother did not catch. Leaning down, he pushed his ear out, waiting for a louder answer. "What was that?" he asked teasingly. "I'm not as strong as you," Menma said quietly. The blonde grinned. "No," he replied while flexing his biceps. The younger of the brothers sadly sniffled. "You can be cold sometimes, big brother," Menma said with a sad pout. "You're stronger." Menma hugged the blonde boy with a loud laugh. The blonde offered him the Bakan, and Menma snatched it out of his hands. He entered a low stance with the sword going over his head. He beckoned him to advance. "Come at me, Naruto," Menma called out. Naruto grinned, entering his own stance. "Gladly." They both ran at one another before their swords were grabbed by whips of fire. "Mom. It's dinner time, boys." A beautiful Ritiid called out, she wore a white apron. Flashback end. A man wearing a riding cloak reappeared in front of the Earth King and his bear, Bosco. The cloaked figure knelt down on a knee in greetings to his majesty. The Earth King was dressed in a royal attire, best suit for a king with his signature glasses, and Bosco was a big grizzly bear wearing a shirt and a hat similar to his owner. "Ah, I thought you would have forgotten to report your findings, Naruto," the Earth King said with a kind smile. The man newly named Naruto pulled his hood down, revealing long ashy blonde hair tied into a ponytail, with 2 bangs hanging on each side of his head and a headband matching his Earth Kingdom clothes. His emerald eyes showing the utmost respect and whisker-like birthmarks on his cheek. "I'm sorry, your highness. It's my brother's 15th birthday and I wanted to wish him a happy birthday, sir." The blonde man spoke with a soft tone. "Oh, I am sorry, Naruto. Please, report your findings to me," the Earth King requested in a rather serious tone. Bosco whimpered at his master's serious exterior, not used to this voice at all, more used to his kind and charming tone. "I found Wan Shai Tong's library." The blonde surveyed the king, who gasped in shock. Not many had found the library before and returned to tell the tale. "And I have some interesting news to tell you, your majesty," Naruto spoke while throwing his hood back over his head. "Please, explain, my boy." The Earth King was eager to know what his most loyal soldier found in the desert. "I found papers. Maps of the world, and I found the Fire Nation's weakest point. A solar eclipse." The hooded man spoke with his head bowed. "And pray tell, how will a solar eclipse help us in any way of destroying the Fire Nation?" "Throughout my travels as your soldier, I've found out plot holes in the Fire Nation's defense, but this solar eclipse is the biggest by far. The eclipse blocks out the rays of sunlight due to the moon for approximately 8 minutes max. That's 8 minutes of the Fire Nation's firebending gone, and that will give us the time to perform a strike on their weakened forces and finally stop this war," Naruto proclaimed, raising his head with flames in his eyes, showing the passion in his eyes. When the Earth King saw this, he smirked. "Finally, a way to put a stop to this war and we can go in peace." "Naruto, my boy. I know how you feel, and I am grateful for your support, but we cannot just waltz into the Fire Nation and kill people in the city. We must do it the right way," the Earth King sighed. "But why not? They did the same thing to our people time and time again, and they won't stop. They must face justice, and I'll be their executor." Naruto grunted and the Earth King narrowed his eyes. "Are you trying to sway me into your way of thinking because of what they did to your mother and father? Because as the king of a nation, I will not let one of my soldiers stray down the path of a murderer. There are innocents in that city, hundreds, thousands, maybe millions. Tons of civilians that have done nothing wrong." Seeing the error of his ways, Naruto lowered his head again. "I am sorry, my lord. But what do you suggest we do about this?" Naruto asked, and the Earth King thought with a hand on his chin. "How long do we have?" "A few months away from now, approximately 3 months," our blonde protagonist told the king. I'll notify the generals of Ba Sing Se," the Earth King said. "Thank you, Naruto. You are free to go. And just for a reminder, the Avatar and his friend are on their way to Ba Sing Se, your majesty," Naruto spoke in a monotone. "Thank you, Naruto. I was not aware of his arrival. Long Feng should have known about this dilemma. Keep looking, keep your ears open for anything concerning Long Feng. And a Fire Nation drill is approaching from the east wing of the outer wall." Naruto spoke with a hint of trepidation in his voice. "Are you sure that it's a Fire Nation product?" the Earth King asked, and Naruto nodded. "I'm not sure if we can stop this drill from piercing through our walls. We must evacuate the city of Ba Sing Se immediately," the Earth King yelled, and Naruto stopped him with a hand. "My liege, if I may. I will be a capable candidate to put a stop to this drill," Naruto reassured. "I don't know. We must think of the people before ourselves." Earth King rubbed the back of his head while saying this. "I can stop it. I have been practicing my bending into something more versatile. I can sink a path and the drill will be immobile. Then we can infiltrate the drill and destroy the drill from the inside," the blonde bender told his plan. "That could work okay. How far is this drill?" Earth King asked. 4 miles away. And it's coming fast," Naruto said, and the Earth King waved his hand as a Dai Li agent appeared at his side. "Notify Long Feng about this incoming drill. And set up a perimeter around the outer and inner shell, place boulders in the way of the drill, slow down its descent." The Dai Li commander nodded to his king before sending a nod to Naruto, who reciprocated the gesture as he disappeared into the shadows. Naruto Earth King called to the retreating blonde. "Yes, my liege." Naruto rotated his head to face the Earth King. "Be careful. I would feel rather saddened if you were to perish." Earth King voiced his concerns, and they were rightfully valid. "I appreciate the concern, my lord. But my duty is to protect you and the kingdom of Ba Sing Se," Naruto spoke with a true smile. And with that, Naruto slipped into the ground. "Soon we will bring the balance this world deserves back to its rightful place." Earth King thought in his head before patting Bosco's head with a kind smile. Flashback Fire Nation. Inside the Fire Nation city, a redeed in Fire Nation soldier armor can be seen overlooking the ocean with a blank stare on his face. He enjoyed the cold air bristling on his face. He ran a hand through his hair. He was sporting a mop of red hair with 2 bangs hanging on each side of his head and bangs covering his forehead that was covered by a slab of metal. This red-haired male stayed seated for a little while longer before he erupted in flames, reappearing in front of the Fire Lord in all his glory. "You called, Fire Lord?" The redeed spoke with boredom in his tone of voice. "Menma, it's about time you made it." Ozai spoke to the now-named Menma. "Yeah, who cares, I'm here now. What do you want?" Menma asked and Ozai scoffed out a reply. "I have an assignment for you." Ozai told the redeed. "I want you to join my daughter and her team in conquering Ba Sing Se. My brother was too soft to do it, so I had to take matters into my own hands." Ozai smirked at the pathetic man his brother had become, going from the famous dragon of the West to a blubbering tea-drinking fool. "And if I refuse?" Menma asked and Ozai sent him a sickly smirk. "I'll melt your flesh down to the bone if you refuse." Menma gulped and nodded his lowered head. "Understand, my lord. When will I leave?" Menma asked his Fire Lord, though he didn't get along with Azula, mainly because she always got on his nerves when calling him tomato and red. Mai was a lazy girl that he didn't mind in the least. Ty Lee, he also didn't mind. She would always say his aura is starting to become dark and sinister and talk about a blonde male with a lot of enthusiasm and care. "You will leave right away. They are waiting for you in the center of the city. Bring what you need for this mission, I have a feeling you're gonna need it." Ozai spoke through his throne of flames. "Right away, sir. I'll make my leave now," Menma said while disappearing in a flock of flames. "Soon, that Earth King's head will be on my wall and his citizens at my feet." Ozai thought as a sinister chuckle left his mouth while he stroked his long beard. With Menma. In the house, a cloud of fire erupted in the middle of the room and the fire dissipated to reveal Menma. Menma dashed into his room and returned with a black sword with a dragon's head as the hilt and its neck as the handle, the sword coming from the dragon's mouth, and some rations. "It's been a while since I used this," Menma thought while running his hand on the blade's edge. "The Dragon Fang, stupid name for it. I would have called it the Dragon's Edge." "Yeah, that sounds better than being named after a tooth," grumbled out Menma. The redeed jumped off his balcony with fire coming out of his boots, flying on a ball of fire in a specific direction. Arriving in the area the Fire Nation drill was supposedly built at. He landed on a scaffolding, scaring a couple of workers due to this. "What's up, meatbags?" Menma grinned at the workers and caught a blade in between his fingers. "Hello to you too, spoiled Azula. I see Mai taught you how to throw a knife." Menma laughed as he jumped off the scaffolding in front of Azula. "What the hell are you doing here, tomato?" Azula asked with a glare full of anger and resentment. Azula was an attractive young girl with black raven hair that was tied into a high ponytail with a 3-bladed hairpiece. "Hello, red boy." Ty Lee greeted cheerfully while dragging along her best friend Mai. Ty Lee had an athletic build with a set of pink clothes consisting of pink leggings, a pink crop top shirt that exposed her belly, and a layer of padding over that. She had long brown hair and gray eyes. Mai was wearing long Fire Nation robes that concealed her weapons, long pitch black hair with golden eyes, like most Fire Nation folk. "Hey, Ty Lee. Sup Mai." Menma greeted and Mai nodded to him and pried her arm from her friend's grasp. "And to answer your question, Azula. Your daddy saw it fit to add me into your little drill situation." Azula's eyes widened for a split second before returning to their usual size. "Why? You're gonna just be baggage in our conquest to conquer Ba Sing Se." Azula taunted and Menma grabbed her collar and brought her face to his in an effort to intimidate her, but it wasn't working like he had hoped. "You might want to watch that mouth, princess." Menma growled and Azula glared at his face. "Or what? You gonna burn me with your puny fire?" Azula taunted further and Ty Lee pulled them both apart. "Hey guys, calm down. We're all friends, are we not? Mai, help me out." Ty Lee pleaded and Mai just shrugged her shoulders with boredom. "What's the point of trying to stop a squabble between two beasts? You can hit as many pressure points as you want, but I am not getting in the middle of those two, Ty Lee." Mai said and watched Ty Lee backflip out the way from a fireblast courtesy of Menma and blocked by Azula. "How about we put that to the test and see who's the real baggage on this team, dum-dum." Menma smirked when he saw a vein pop on Azula's forehead. "You might want to watch where you step, Menma. I don't play fair with my prey." Azula warned him and blew some smoke out. "And I don't play games, little girl, this is the harsh world we're living in. You better adapt quickly or you'll surely be snuffed out." Menma warned and jumped towards Azula with her doing the same. They met in the center of the field and both threw a punch and both caught said blow. Releasing each other's hands, Azula sent a kick to Menma's midsection and he grabbed the leg before he began spinning her in a circle. "Is this all you got, so-called firebending prodigy?" Menma mocked and Azula placed his hands on the ground and dug her nails into the dirt for more grip and kicked Menma away. "Oh please, you're gonna have to try harder than that." Azula twirls and a barrage of fire blasts were launched in Menma's direction. "Are you kidding me?" Menma ran through the blue flames, some missing him and the rest being blocked or dodged by him. Finally reaching Azula, he stopped her spin by grabbing her hand and punching her face hard. "Come on, you spoiled brat. Fight me seriously." Menma exclaimed and watched Azula wipe the blood from her mouth and stand up from getting knocked down. "Fine." She blasted off the ground and sped to Menma at full speed. Menma was surprised at the increase of speed and didn't register the sharp elbow in his gut, but he did have time to sidestep the axe kick and kick Azula away. Using the space between them, Menma released a humongous flame from both fists. Azula weaved out of the way of danger and sent a precise but small fire from the tips of her fingers. They fought ruthlessly without wavering. It was as if two dragons were intertwining into each other. Just when it started getting a bit bloody, the captain of the crew signaled that the drill was ready for release. Azula and Menma were at the moment pulling each other's hair with such force, it brought some tears to the two's eyes. Some on the sidelines were laughing and cheering. "Princess Azula, the Fire Nation drill is in pristine condition and is ready for its deployment," the War Minister Kin said. Menma saw Azula was momentarily distracted, so he grabbed her arm and flipped her over his shoulder before placing a fiery dagger he made to her neck. "Do you surrender?" Menma asked and got pulled off of her from Ty Lee. "Stop fighting, guys." Ty Lee screamed, her screams breaking some of the glass of water the engineers were drinking from. "You're a lucky bastard," Menma shouted at the still-down princess. After the dispute, they got themselves cleaned up and entered the drill. Time skip next day. A huge drill was making its way to the Great Wall of Ba Sing Se, several Fire Nation-style tanks flanking its rear. Earthbenders stood on the wall with boulders over their heads ready to release them if needed. General Sung was on top giving orders to the elite earthbending platoon. The Terra team. Long Feng was standing in front of the Earth King giving in his feedback about the drill slowly approaching. Long Feng had to give the Earth King credit when he found out about the drill. He was hoping he could keep it underneath the king's nose and work in the shadows. "Seer, it is in your best interests to believe me when I say, nothing has ever penetrated into our Great Wall and it won't happen now." Long Feng pushed on. "That's hard to believe when General Sung's men are not trying to stop the damn machine," the Earth King asked in anger. "We're trying all we can, but we want you to stay safe." Long Feng lied. "I don't care what you want. I want you to protect my people. I am disposable but they aren't. So go now." The Earth King yelled and Long Feng bowed before leaving his palace. Sighing, Earth King wiped the sweat off his forehead. "Naruto, I want you to set an example for the Earth Kingdom," the Earth King said, and Naruto stepped out from behind the Badger Mole statue throne. "And that would be?" Naruto asked. "I want you to show the Earth Kingdom strength and take the drill down yourself," the Earth King ordered seriously. "When will I go?" the blonde asked. "As soon as possible." Naruto nodded and sunk into the ground using his earthbending ability. "I am glad to have the world's greatest earthbender as my soldier," Earth King said cheerfully. Naruto was given the nickname Fang of the Earth King since he took the Dai Li down single-handedly. Where the Dai Li was the Earth King's shield, Naruto was his sword. With Team Avatar. There was an earth tent that was made for a pregnancy that had just happened. Toph Bifrong sneezed. "I have the feeling I need to smash some head in," Toph said and hit Avatar Ong over the head. "Ow Toph. What was that for?" Ong rubbed a lump that formed over his head. Toph was a small 12-year-old with a wide leather belt plus cuffs on her ankles and wrists with a bit of green cloth hanging from them. She went barefoot because only by being in contact with the ground can she see. "Someone said something crappy and I needed to hit someone." Toph shrugged and Ong let it go. Ong wore robes that the air nomades wore and had blue arrows going over his head, arms and feet. The arrows are a sign of devotion to the air nomade way and it helps the flow of Kai flow smoother. "I forgive you," Ong stated with a grin. "I didn't say sorry." Toph shrugged again before leaning on a tree next to her. "Still, you didn't have to hit me so hard." Ong groaned and Toph again shrugged while taking Ong's staff from him and put it over her shoulders with her wrists hanging over the ancient instrument. Katara waved Ong over to the earth tent and stepped inside. Seeing the lovely couple and their baby brought tears to Ong's eyes. "What should we name her?" the father asked his beautiful wife. His wife looked at her baby with adoration and kissed the top of her head. "I always want our daughter's name to be unique," the mother said to her husband. "I want it to mean something. I've been going through a really hard time lately. But you've made me hopeful again." Ong wiped his tears away after saying this. "I know what I want to name our baby," Ying said. "What is it?" then asked. "Hope." Hope. That's a beautiful name for our angel. Then said and Katara and Aang exited the tent. I thought I was trying to be strong. But I was really running away from my feelings, Aang said with his back turned. Seeing this family full of so much happiness and love, it reminded me of how I felt about Appa. Aang turned to Katara and smiled fondly. And how I feel about you. This had Katara catching tears. She wore loose sleeves, A-line silhouette, side slits, and rounded collar with thick trim and a sash around her waist. She had chocolate skin with brown hair with 2 hair loops going from her forehead to the back. A pretty water tribe necklace around her neck. Aang embraced Katara who did the same. The group regrouped together. I promise. I'll find Appa as fast as I can. Aang promised and Toph gave back his staff. I just really need to do this. The tattooed kid said. See you in the big city. Sokka said. Sokka wore water tribal warrior clothes and had the same skin complexion as Katara and had his hair tied into a warrior's wolf tail and is the older brother of Katara. Say hi to that big fuzzball for me. Toph said while punching Aang's hard. You'll find him Aang. Katara said and he smiled while rubbing his sore arm. I know. Thank you Katara. Aang waved his glider and wings came out of the top half and bottom half of the staff and jumped into the air. Off to the side Sokka of the water tribe was packing supplies into a bag he bought from an Earth Kingdom town. Suki of the Kyoshi warriors walked up to him. Sokka, it's been really great to see you again. Suki said. Suki was a beautiful girl that wore female warrior attire and kabuki makeup. Whoa, hold on. Why does it sound like you're saying goodbye? Sokka asked, jumping to his feet. I came along because I wanted to make sure you got through the Serpent's Pass safely. But now I need to get back to the other Kyoshi warriors. She said, making Sokka's arms sag. So you came along to protect me? Sokka asked, baffled. Suki looked away with a small blush. Listen, I'm really sorry about last night. Suki said embarrassingly. Long story short, Sokka was feeling down about his ex-girlfriend who died. That night it was a full moon and his girlfriend died and became that moon. Suki caught onto his sadness and went to comfort him, but when she went to kiss him, he pulled away and left her heartbroken. Last night it was. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Suki said and smiled. I see now that your heart belongs to someone else. She said while looking at Toph who was picking her nose. Who? Sokka asked, he was genuinely confused. Suki shook her head. You'll see. The Great Wall of Ba Sing Se. The bald kid with a blue arrow on his head and flying on a glider with a flying lemur at his side. They stood on the wall overseeing the city of Ba Sing Se. Sorry Momo. Appa's gonna have to wait. Aang told his friend Pet. Fire Nation tanks rumble across the terrain, a large metal mechanism following close by the Fire Nation drill, slowly moving its way toward the outer wall of Ba Sing Se. Several sections of the drill extend forward, releasing steam as spikes are driven into the ground. The drill's command module ascends where inside are Princess Azula, her friends, Mai and Ty Lee, Menma, and War Minister Kin and several operators of the drill. There were 3 thrones, Mai was on the far left with Ty Lee on her right and Azula was on the middle throne. Menma was sitting on the steps below the thrones. This drill is a feat of scientific ingenuity and raw destructive power. The War Minister said and Menma scoffed. What seems to be the problem, Menma? The War Minister asked with an edge to his voice and Menma smirked. Power isn't everything. If it's that destructive then why do you need so many Fire Nation tanks to flank its sides? The War Minister looked away at that point with a small blush. Exactly. You should have done a smaller drill so it wouldn't be seen so easily and burrow through the wall. A small hole going in and a big hole coming out. Menma said. Menma. Be quiet or I'll report your outburst as disobedience and we'll have to take it up against my father. Azula chastised and Menma quieted down but blew her raspberry. Continue, Minister Kin. Azula said politely but showed no politeness on her pretty face. Once it tunnels through the wall, our troops will swarm the city and the Earth Kingdom will finally fall. And you can claim it in the name of your father. The War Minister said proudly. Nothing can stop us. Kin said confidently. Well he said this Ty Lee looked through the periscope. What about those muscle Y guys down there? Ty Lee asked while removing her face from the periscope. She peers through a periscope at several Earth Kingdom troops using earthbending to create large trenches, Fire Nation forces following them in hot pursuit. The War Minister struck the periscope roughly alarming Ty Lee. Please. The drill's metal shell is impervious to any earthbending attack. He countered, having full confidence in his machine. Oh, I'm sure it is, War Minister Kin, but just to be on the safe side, Azula said sharply while looking at her 2 friends. Mai and Ty Lee, take the earthbenders out. She ordered. Mai was sitting there swinging a knife around her finger, relieved. Finally, something to do. Mai sighed and rose from her throne and walked out with Ty Lee flanking her. Why didn't you send me? Menma asked. Because, I'm going to need a right-hand man to help if everything goes south on our end. Azula told the Redeed. Was that a compliment? Menma asked, a little tint of red on his cheeks. In turn Azula looked away with a small blush. And if it is? It's only business. Azula stated. Back with Team Avatar. Of Team Avatar, minus Aang. Katara, Sokka and Toph can be seen escorting Nen and his family to the city. Aang appears, flying in on his glider with Momo behind him. Once he landed in front of the group, Momo perched on his shoulder. Katara looked surprisingly at the airhead. Aang, what are you doing here? I thought you were looking for Appa. She raised a delicate eyebrow. I was, but something stopped me. Something big. Aang told the group seriously before Aang took them to the base of the outer wall, where Aang and Toph used earthbending to transport everyone up the wall. Now what's so big that Appa has to wait? Sokka asked Aang, and when they got high enough they saw the Fire Nation drill in all its glory. That. Aang said. The group finally arrived at the top of the outer wall. We made it to Ba Sing Se and we're still not safe. No one is. Ying cried out despairingly and then huddled the family members together. An earthbender guard spotted them. What are you people doing here? Civilians aren't allowed on the wall. The earthbender hollered out. Aang stood firm in the guard's face and spoke the words. I'm the Avatar. Take me to whoever is in charge. Aang authoritatively said. The scene changes to a portion of the outer wall where a roof rises overhead, supported by tall arches. An Earth Kingdom general sits behind a desk with Team Avatar standing in front of him. General Sung greeted happily. It is an honor to welcome you to the outer wall, young Avatar, but your help is not needed. He told the group who face faulted. Not needed, Aang asked. General Sung waved a finger. Not needed. Sung said slowly. I have the situation under control. I assure you the Fire Nation cannot penetrate this wall. Many have tried to break through it, but none have succeeded. What about the Dragon of the West? He got in. Toph's smart and witty reply had slightly taken aback General Sung. Well, technically yes, but he was quickly expunged. He said confidently. Nevertheless, that is why the city is named Ba Sing Se. It's the impenetrable city. They don't call it Na Sing Se. He laughs, but subsequently turns serious. That means penetrable city. And would be rather inadequate. Yeah, thanks for the tour, but we still got the drill problem. Toph reminded. Not for long. To stop it, I've sent an elite platoon of earthbenders called the Terra Team. That's a good group name. Very catchy. Sokka sent a thumbs up to the general for the great name. Team Avatar and General Sung peered down at the Terra Team, launching their assault on the Fire Nation drill. They managed to overthrow one tank and get closer to the drill. Ready attack. The supposed leader of Team Terra commanded, and the earthbenders wedged large earth spikes into the metal shell of the drill to halt it. However, the drill segment separate, reducing the columns to crumbles. The Terra Team narrowly manages to conjure earth shields to defend themselves against an assault of flying daggers hurled by Mai. She and Ty Lee are seen sliding down the shell of the drill. The scene cuts to the side of the drill where Ty Lee lands gracefully onto the ground. She effortlessly managed to defeat the earthbenders through an acrobatic display, utilizing Kai blocking and fast movement. Upon witnessing the defeat of the Terra Team, the general flailed his arms in panic. We're doomed. General Sung cried. Sokka slaps him hard across the face. Get a hold of yourself, man. General Sung rubbed his red cheek. You're right. I'm sorry. Sung apologized. Maybe you'd like the Avatar's help now? Toph asked with a grin. General Sung meekly stood before the Avatar and humbly said. Yes, please. That won't be needed. A voice spoke. Just then Toph stomped her foot and launched herself, Team Avatar and General Sung out of the way as a man flew out of a hole that just opened in the spot they were just at and then closed. Sokka landed on his face with Katara falling on top of Sokka comically and Aang gliding down and Sung fell on his back. The man with long blonde hair turned to face the general. Naruto was clad in Earth Kingdom attire and there were 4 semi-large gourds on his leather belt. Lord Naruto. The general bowed. Lord. Is he the Earth King? Katara asked. Toph was still stunned that she didn't sense him when he was under them. No. I'm the personal bodyguard of the Earth King. Naruto spoke in a monotone. And what do you mean our help won't be needed? Sokka asked Naruto. Exactly that. Your help isn't needed. Naruto then looked at Aang. Aang for a reason tensed up when he noticed the stare. Can I help you? Aang asked. No. I don't need your help, nor do we want it. Suddenly Naruto snapped at the boy. What's that supposed to mean? Toph asked. Naruto turned to look at Toph and said coldly. The world doesn't need the Avatar, bandit. Naruto said and the group stared in shock at the audacity that this guy has. How can you say that? Aang is the Avatar. Katara exclaimed and Naruto clicked his teeth. And he should have done his job. Naruto told her, making Katara step back, Sokka readying his trusty boomerang and Aang looked down. 100 years of bloodshed could have been stopped if you had just done your job. Naruto sneered, he began slowly approaching him. I never wanted this responsibility. Aang rebuked and Naruto clicked his teeth. I wouldn't either. But I'd still man up and do what was right for the spirit and physical world. Naruto saw Aang lower his head and Katara wrapped an arm around him. You can't just do that. He's the Avatar. Katara revised. You really like saying that, huh? Naruto said and Katara rubbed her neck, lately she's been saying that a lot. The world never needed an Avatar in the first place. No Avatar in history has done their job right and you of course haven't. Naruto spat. What do you mean no Avatar? You don't know anything about the past Avatars. Countered Aang and Naruto shook his head. I've been to Wan Shai Tong's library. He has info there that I've read. Avatar Sito was too focused on his country to care about the world. Avatar Yangchen had to deal with and break down isolationist politics. Yangchen also helped make peace between 4 nations, but at the cost of angering spirits. Naruto explained. Aang's eyes were wide, completely surprised by the knowledge of Wan Shai Tong's library. Avatar Kuruk had to spend all his time battling spirits and winds up neglecting the 4 nations. Kuruk dies early in battle from sickness, in turn leaving an unbalanced world. Nani Kaiashi creates a secret police to try and paper over the problems of her country, and Grandpa Roku showed favoritism to his home nation. Not taking matters into his own hands if it meant the best interest for his people. Naruto then stood in front of Aang who was shamelessly looking down. And you, when you die, your actions will backfire and leave a weight on the next Avatar who would have to clean up your mess. No matter how hard you try to stop the Fire Lord, you'll never do it how it's supposed to be done. Naruto then turned away from the Avatar. Throughout this team Avatar didn't speak, too engrossed with wondering what Naruto wanted to prove. General Sung. You might want to get your men from down there before they burn. Naruto warned, the group looked confused. He began walking away to the direction of the drill. You're wrong. Aang shouted. What was that? Naruto asked. I said you're wrong. I will bring balance to the world, but I'll do it the right way. Aang screamed at Naruto. All Avatars before you made the same promise, but they inevitably failed. What makes you so different? Naruto asked. Because I have my friends alongside me. Aang grinned. Naruto stared into Aang's eyes before scoffing. I'll believe it when I see it. Naruto walked away before whipping around and kicking some earth away. Everyone stared at Toph who had a fist stretched out. Yes. Let's fight. Right here, right now. Toph stomped her foot and Naruto laughed, though it was hollow. Fine. I'll humor you, come at with all you got. Naruto waved a hand mockingly. Toph growled and raised a huge boulder, then sent it to the blonde. Naruto beeped his hand back and shot it out, destroying the boulder. He quickly did a quick follow-up attack by sending the smashed pieces of earth to Toph. Toph quickly raised up an earth wall to block the incoming projectiles. She blocked most of them, but to her surprise some got through and she made a makeshift shield with her sturdy arms. She slid back from the force. Might want to do a bit of a fence. Naruto called out and Toph threw sharp slabs of earth to him. He weaved through all of them, like a leaf floating through the air. Aang's eyes widened when he saw those movements. He then thrusted his hands out, all of those small earth projectiles being thrust back upon Toph, and she did her best to dodge and block the earth, but did fail regardless. One hit her foot and made her stumble forward. Naruto sank into the ground before her re-emerged out of the earth and did a double palm thrust into her sternum, knocking the air out of her. I have to admit. You're an excellent earthbender. Maybe even better than me, but I have experience that underground battles can't help you fight against. Naruto told the stunned group. Everyone was shocked at this, never had anyone beaten Toph so badly. Naruto jumped off the Great Wall of Ba Sing Se, and everyone panicked. Looking over the wall they saw Naruto falling, and Aang went to save him, but Sokka stopped him. Wait. Sokka exclaimed. Naruto falling mid-air opened the gourds on his belt, and sand came flying out before making a cloud of sand underneath him, and used his bending to help him fly. When you become as adept with earthbending as I, then I'll consider teaching you the art of sub-bending. Naruto told the blind one before he flew down to the drill and retracted his sand into the gourds when he near reached the ground. He proceeded to gather the wounded earthbenders and placed them on an earth platform and sent it up to the group. Inside the drill. What the hell was that? Azula asked no one in particular. They watched a cloud of sand fly down in front of the drill and an earth platform holding the injured soldiers. That looks so cool. Looks like an earthbender wants to have more fun. Ty Lee grinned savagely and looked at Azula. Can I go pretty please? Ty Lee begged Azula. Whatever. Do what you want. Azula dismissed her. Ty Lee skipped out of the chambers. Do you really want your loyal pets to do what they want? Menma asked and Azula glared at him. I mean, they are where you get your support from. Do you really want them to be running around doing as they please? Menma asked again. Shut up Menma. Azula sneered. Menma looked at her confusedly. What did I say? Menma asked confusedly. They are not my support. Azula spat. Are you going senile? I didn't say anything. Menma repeated. Getting fed up, Azula stood from her throne. Let's go. I want something to punch. Azula said and walked out of the chambers, and so did Mai and Menma. Outside the drill. Naruto brought his arms up before smashing them down in the drill's pathway. A ginormous crack in the earth. Before any form of creation, there must be destruction. Naruto slammed both hands on the ground before. Fire. The lead tank shot a blast of fire to Naruto's body. The blonde brought a wall of earth to block the fire. He lowered the barrier glaring. He started his attack by shooting rocks at the holes where they shot fire. He subsequently used earthbending to shoot them into the air, and they landed on top of one another while the soldiers exited the tank with fire in their eyes. With Team Avatar. Watching this happen, the Avatar team was impressed with Naruto's earth prowess, and Toph was a bit jealous. She was the talk of her town as the best earthbender, even if that was through underground battles. She will beat this nobody in a matter of due time, or at least humiliate him. I think we should help him. Sokka suggested, and Aang was nodding with him. Katara was a little more reluctant due to the verbal lashing he gave Aang. Toph wanted nothing to do with him, but she could maybe rub it in his face that she, a blind little girl, saved his sorry butt. Oh, I don't think you would want to do that, young Avatar. General Sung advised. Why not? He's clearly outnumbered. Aang asked. Well, you see, he is a fugitive from the Fire Nation. His father was a high-ranking Fire Nation soldier, while his mother was an Earth native living amongst the Fire Nation. And he, how can I put this? Despises the Fire Nation. Because they sent his father on a suicidal mission while they killed his mother and jotted up as an act of caution and justice. General Sung explained to the group. And hey, why did he refer to Kakashi and Roku as Nanny and Grandpa? Sokka asked. General Sung laughed slightly at the irony. Well, you see. Naruto's mother, Kushina, was a descendant of Kakashi's daughter's line, Koko. And Naruto's father, Minato, on the other hand, was a distant grandson of Avatar. General Sung laughed joyfully. Now that's why it's ironic. Avatar Aang is the reincarnation of Roku and Kakashi. General Sung laughed at the stupefied faces of Team Avatar. That's impossible, Aang muttered. He did sense a small kinship with Naruto, but for only a split second. I know that's nice and all, but we need to help. Sokka reminded the team. Yeah, we don't care how he feels about us stopping the fight, it's my job to keep the balance. Aang explained, his face red with anger. Creating a platform, he and Toph slid down the wall with the rest to survey and hopefully stop the fight. Oh, I hope you know what you're doing, young Avatar. Sung said, watching them slowly descend down to the floor. Back with Naruto. All 16 soldiers shot fire blasts simultaneously, and Naruto slipped into the earth before re-emerging with a ton of sand, encasing his legs, and used the sand to raise him higher and higher into the air. He then slammed his own body into the ground, in doing so spreaded the sand and encased all soldiers in the sand. His hands began closing in a squeezing motion. The soldiers' cries in pain being evident to Naruto, he glared at the wincing men with a certain look of finality. Egan. Naruto began muttering before he was blasted away by a huge gust of wind. He executed multiple mid-air flips and landed in a crouched position. What are you doing? Aang demanded. I'm doing what you're too afraid of doing, I'm putting a stop to this senseless fighting my way. Naruto moved his head and a boomerang came out. He then stomped his foot, creating an earth wave that knocked Team Avatar off their feet. He then encased the crew in earth. Stay put. Before this world will lose their Avatar. Naruto said and began squeezing his hands, the Fire Nation soldiers screaming in agony. Don't do this. It won't end well for you. Aang shouted and Naruto ignored him and continued squeezing. Stay out of this, airhead. The world has changed in more ways than one. Naruto said and Toph heard cracks coming from the wailing soldiers. She began to get frightened. She may act hard on the outside, but she was still a 12-year-old that still hadn't experienced death firsthand. Sandberry Naruto was almost done with his attack when he was hit from behind with wind once again. You should have listened when I said stop. Naruto turned around to see none other than Avatar Aang in his Avatar state. Naruto retracted the sand he was gonna for the fire soldiers and formed 9 sand tentacles coming from his back. Aang launched 5 massive boulders at Naruto, who grabbed them mid-air with sand and intended to throw them back to Aang. Using the opening he opened, Aang rushed forward and threw Naruto back with a palm strike infused with the air element to his midsection. Naruto felt a couple ribs crack from the shot. Aang created an air sphere around him and rounded himself on Naruto and blasted him back with an air thrust, the air convulsing from the pressure of air. Naruto stopped himself and landed without a struggle and used his sand and binded Aang air sphere, who was momentarily stunned and didn't react fast enough. Naruto surprised everyone as he brought his hand up and encased the sphere of sand in magma that rose from the ground, turning the sand sphere into a glass sphere. Fang jumped at the sphere, with help from an earth column to reach the sphere and his fists in earth, and heated the outer earth, and broke the shield of glass, and the sphere of air was vanquished. Naruto continued his assault with 3 hot punches to Aang's face and stomach, leaving burns in its wake. And since the Avatar state doesn't hold any healing properties, these burns stuck. They're landing, I'm damaging him with my attacks. This kid's no god, he's just a human. Thought Naruto. He then grabbed Aang and spun around, holding Aang by his ankles, and threw him into the Great Wall, leaving a crater in its wake. Aang rose from the hole in the wall, his avatar state flickering on and off due to not being used to prolonging a battle while simultaneously using the avatar state. Aang then made an air whip and wrapped it around Naruto's foot before whipping him around in a ton of circles and releasing him onto the ground, resulting in a huge Naruto-sized hole to appear. He climbed out of the hole with his shirt ripped to tatters. Naruto was seen glaring at Aang and clicked his teeth annoyedly. The audacity to think that you can outnumber me with past avatars laughable. Naruto proclaimed, his face worn by a scowl, this was by far his longest and toughest fight. But little did Naruto know, a harder fight was coming. Aang dropped to the ground, his avatar state flickering violently, and he gritted his teeth. The blonde earthbender jumped at Aang and grabbed his head before tossing him towards the drill that was still moving. Aang's back was shredded to bits and he screamed in agony. He was rebounded off the drill, and Naruto made Aang land on his back, and Naruto rose some earth for Aang to land on. Let's end this. Naruto said and grabbed Aang's collar, but he was whipped on the head. Now what? He growled and turned around before ducking underneath a water whip. I know that move. You were trained by Paku, weren't you? Naruto asked Katara, who had tears in her eyes. How do you know Master Paku? The water tribe girl asked angrily. He taught me the ways of the water. I learned under him, I studied the styles of all the nations, including the air nomads. It made me a powerful bender. Naruto said. Katara shot her water at Naruto, who summoned up dust pillars that deflected the water and turned it to mud. She tried separating the water from the dust, but Naruto threw Aang to Katara. I suggest you heal him. He is selfish, he is arrogant, he is also a pest. But my grandparents are somewhere in there. Naruto said and Katara nodded, dragging Sokka and Toph, who had wide eyes while looking at Naruto. Toph. Let's go. Sokka yelled and dragged her away, and she bent their way back up the wall. Naruto watched them leave before dropping down to a knee, blood coming from his mouth, his back hurt like hell and. Standing in front of the drill's drill, he lava bends the earth beneath it. He spreads the lava until the entire space under the drill is lava, causing the machine to sink into it and become unstable. He went to walk away, seeing as his job was done, before. Naruto. Ty Lee's scream reached Naruto's ears and forced him to stop his attack. Whipping his head around, he saw Ty Lee's flexible body spinning through the air. Naruto thrusted his hand and encased Ty Lee in sand before using lava bending to heat the sand, turning it into glass. Oh, it's just you. Hello, Ty Lee. It's been a while. Huh? Naruto greeted with a nod. Ty Lee teared up a bit with a grin. Hey Naru. Can you let me out? Ty Lee asked politely but with an edge. Naruto narrowed his eyes and thought. If Shess here, then that means Azula is here. Naruto thought and replied with. No can do, sweetheart. I have a job to do. Naruto then waved his arms in a hypnotic motion and a big chunk of the Great Wall was ripped out. Closing his eyes, he applied heat to the buzzsaw like earth. Time to bring it down. Naruto struck his hand out, the boiling hot saw blade followed his movements and cut the drill off the rest of the machine. And pop goes the weasel. Naruto's side flipped out of the way of a fire blast. Well, if it isn't the traitorous scum, Azula made her presence known and shot another blast of fire to Naruto. He weaved out of the way and shot some earth to her unprotected side, throwing her off the drill. And if it isn't the spoilt brat. Hey my. Naruto greeted the black-haired beauty who sent a volley of throwing knives. He brought up an earth wall that blocked the view. Azula smashed the wall with a hard kick. She got in her stance when the dust dissipated. Where are you? Right behind you. Naruto said and kicked her midsection, throwing her body to the cluster of glass that held Ty Lee. Finally. Ty Lee ran to Naruto at top speed. He brought up an earth column under her foot and raised her higher in the air. She jumped off the column and Naruto was in her face. He kicked her back down into Azula's rising body. Crap. The pain is coming back. Naruto thought painfully and dodged to the left as Azula shot fire his way. He raised another earth wall and rested his back on it, breathing heavily. She jumped high in the air and rained down fire. 1, 2, 3, 4 punches of fire before she executed a mid-air flip and shot a fire blast out of her feet. It destroyed the wall the blonde was leaning on. Rolling out of the way by knives ready to skew him, the blonde earthbender performed an aerial before thrusting a streamline of earth to the falling firebender. Said firebender shot fire to her left to evade the earth, just narrowly missing the flying rocks. Using the earth pillar that Naruto conjured for Aang, Azula used it to slow her descent. She then kicked off the earth and performed a mid-air flip and did some hand motion and generated lightning. Die. She yelled before shooting the traitor with lightning, intent on killing him. Naruto raised a long earth pillar to raise Azula's arm up, forcing the lightning to change its course and shoot past the wall. Azula went to shoot some fire at Naruto, who swept the ground, intentionally shifting Azula's feet placement to a 90-degree angle. Azula rushed Naruto and engaged in a CQC, close quarters combat. Naruto entered a lazy stance, hoping to not bring his body more pain. "You filthy traitor." She screamed. Azula came at Naruto with fire daggers and began swiping at him with such ferocity, he blocked, parried and dodged her shots easily and flipped over her. Naruto kicked her away, then dodged a few knives from Mai. One split his cheek open, it most likely will leave a scar once it healed. Leaning back on the wall, Naruto held onto his broken ribs, wincing. Hylie for her part stopped fighting, seeing her former love in agony. They did see the fight between Aang and the blonde, but didn't expect him to be able to come out on top. Azula blasted a wave of fire from her feet and Naruto sunk into the ground and re-emerged behind Hylie. She predicted he'd come for her because she's the only one in their group who can combat him in CQC. She used Kai blocking and paralyzed his left arm and performed a back handspring. Damn. Naruto conjured an earth disc and heated it up. He made a makeshift buzzsaw that was fiery hot. "Is that lava?" Ty Lee asked. Naruto then threw the buzzsaw in Azula's direction. She dodged the saw, but her hair was cut. Using the momentum of her dodge, she fired a blast at Naruto. Naruto jumped over the wave, spinning his body in the air, but was thrown back by a kick from someone new. The blonde winced again because his damaged back. "It's been some time, older brother," the newcomer said. "Menma," Naruto muttered. He smashed his arm on the Great Wall, his former paralyzed arm now good anew. "Who would have thought you'd be in Ba Sing Se?" Menma grinned savagely. He slowly walked towards Naruto. "I would have thought you'd hate Azula after she narsed about dad," Naruto said. Azula tried attacking Naruto, but Menma kicked her away. DCH, he was weak to lose to soldiers. For a descendant of Kaioshin, he was pathetic. Menma sneered. Naruto's eyes turned cold. Approaching Menma, the blonde brother said. "What happened to you? You're not the brother I remember," Naruto stated. "You're right. I'm not. Now are you satisfied?" Menma asked sarcastically. "No. Just disappointed. I thought you were better than them." Naruto pointed at the down at. "You know, you're starting to sound like mom," Menma stated and cuffed some hair behind his ear. "Good. At least one of us does." Naruto countered and caught a punch from Menma, whose expression could match his bending, fiery. "Listen. You think you can just come and tell me how to live my life? You don't even know what I've been through." Menma yelled in his face. He punched Naruto's unguarded side and threw him back with that shot. Naruto coughed out blood. "How do you think I feel? I had to raise you when mom and dad died." Naruto trailed out while rolling out of the way of Menma's axe kick. "And where did you go when I needed you? When I found out mom and dad died? Where were you? What did you do?" Menma yelled while shooting fire in Naruto's direction. Naruto brought up an earth barrier, but Menma smashed through it, punching him away, cracking his cheekbone. "Nothing. You just up and left." Menma sneered while bringing his hand to his mouth and blowing a small condensed flame to the blonde that grew larger the longer it continued. "I couldn't look after you and carry guilt. That was not my fault." Naruto did a back handspring, in doing so kicked Menma's hands up and 2 streams of fire came out. He then tackled him and threw him into the drill, making a huge dent from the force. Not your fault, Menma snapped, pointing at Naruto and making him step back, his eyes red of anger, steam rolling off his body. Naruto steeled himself and rushed Menma. "Who filled my head with dreams?" Menma asked and caught Naruto's leg and threw him on the ground. "Who drove me to train until my bones cracked?" Menma asked while destroying a boulder Naruto launched. "Who left me to fend for myself?" Menma screamed. Naruto kicked Menma away and entered a serious stance. Menma unsheathed his sword and heaved his blade at Naruto. Naruto caught the blade before tossing it back at Menma, who backhanded the sharp weapon with the back of his gauntlet before Naruto jumped towards him, spinning his body and threw his leg at Menma's face. Menma watches Naruto disappear into the ground and gets kicked by the blonde who reappears from the earth. Menma's body bounces off some debris. Naruto raised 7 earth columns. The sun began setting, but the fight continued. The Fire Nation team watched this fight play out with awaiting breaths. Ty Lee didn't know whose safety to think of, her ex-boyfriend that she still loves or Menma, one of her closest friends. Mai didn't really care about family conflict, but she was invested in who would win. Azula was angry that she wanted to be the one to kill Naruto, and she was a bit worried for Menma. Menma and Naruto walked over while he burned his armor off his body, the Redeed said. "Fine. Fists," he said, with blood pouring out his mouth, the blonde said. "Oh, sounds like your last Saturday night," the blonde said while encasing his knuckles in earth. Menma was the first to strike, but it was countered by Naruto who followed up with a backhand. He kicked the Redeed's leg and intended to throw a kick, but his ribs yearned for rest. Menma took the opportunity and threw him into the wall. Naruto quickly rebounded though. Naruto and Menma met in the middle for some old-fashioned CQC. They traded blow for blow, neither wavering, they took their battle to the pillars of earth. Naruto leapt from column to column, pursued by the Redeed. The blonde eventually jumps to the top of the pillars and the brother follows and he blasts fire from his feet and flies above the blonde. A fist fight was in the works in midair. Naruto briefly got the upper hand before Menma gets his hands around the blonde's throat as they crash back through the roof. Naruto lands on his back, injuring it further. Menma got off him, he tried punching his brother, but Naruto slipped the punch, bringing him down for a headbutt and a kick to get him off. The Redeed lit fire on his hands and began ruthlessly attacking Naruto with the style he taught Menma. He was dominating the fight from here out. "All I ever did I did to make you proud." Menma punched the blonde cracked ribs, breaking several more ribs and leaving burns. "Tell me how proud you are, Naruto. Tell me." Menma punched 3 more times before he yelled. "Tell me." He executed a double palm strike. Naruto was left wheezing and stumbled to his feet. I am proud of you. I have always been proud of you. You were so talented. You could use your bending like a pro before you were even 7. And, I couldn't bear to watch you use firebending, as it was the thing that took our father away." Naruto told his little brother, and Menma took a step back. His older brother left because of his firebending. It wasn't his fault their dad was killed by firebenders. He lunged for Naruto, but the blonde just sat there. Menma grabbed his throat, slamming him into the wall. "You're telling me that they died because of my bending?" shouted Menma. Suddenly Naruto used his fingers to bring up dust, stunning Menma. "You're still not there." Naruto leaned into the Great Wall before he began to phase through the earth like it was air and tunneled his way to the top of the Great Wall. "What?" Tylee began. "Just." Azula continued. "Well, that was boring. Mai ruined it. Damn you, Mai." When the smoke dissipated, Azula saw Menma lying there, unconscious. She smelt the air before covering her nose. It seems Naruto encased the dirt below him in hydrogen cyanide. And he infused so much of it in Menma's system. "Let's take this idiot back to the Fire Nation and I'll report the interesting news to father." Azula smirked mischievously. On the top of the wall. Naruto re-emerged behind General Sung and fell over. "Oh great heavens." General Sung exclaimed, gaining the attention of Team Avatar. Katara had just finished Ong, all he needed was some healing on his burns, and that's it. Sokka was sitting down and Toph was trying to earthbend. Or lavabend, you couldn't tell because she didn't even know what she was doing. "What's wrong with him?" Katara asked and Sokka peered over the wall. "Probably involves that." Sokka points to an injured Azula, a slightly scratched Tylee, and a bored Mai holding an unconscious Redeed. "Azula, Tylee and Mai. They fought Naruto," Katara exclaimed. "Yup. They were some tough people." Naruto muttered with his face in the rubble. "Ong struggled just with Azula, and you took the Redeed, Mai and Tylee and are still standing." Katara praised Naruto whose face was still on the ground. "Well kind of." Toph quipped. Naruto knocked himself back up to his feet and limped to a bed before he tripped over, but was caught by Sokka. "I'm strange, I weigh nearly 196 pounds, and it doesn't look like you're straining. You're a strong warrior, aren't you? Definitely the leader." Naruto praised Sokka's strength, and Sokka dropped Naruto on the floor to gloat on his strength. "Ow. Oops. Sorry." Sokka apologized and helped Naruto up. He began telling Naruto that he's the best warrior in his village, and he was even given citizenship in the Northern Water Tribe. Katara was treating Naruto's numerous injuries. His broken ribs, split cheek, vertebrae fracture, broken cheekbone and his bruised nose. Naruto was at the moment unconscious. How is he even alive? These injuries would kill a normal person. Katara stated matter-of-factly, this time Toph quipped in. "We earthbenders have a tough exoskeleton due to our rough training regimen," Toph said intelligently. Sokka's sweat dropped while Katara took it with a grain of salt. "How'd you get so smart?" Sokka asked dumbfoundedly. "I had an expensive education," grumbled Toph. Ong began waking up from a terrible nightmare. "Ah." Ong gasped and sprung up from his bed, in turn freaking Sokka and Toph out. Sokka fell off one of the futons, and Toph jumped to her feet in shock. "What is it?" "Enemies. My parents." Toph fired earth in every direction in fright. "Ong, you're awake." Katara sighed in relief. "What happened?" Ong asked Katara, holding his head in slight irritation. "Naruto kicked your butt, Twinkletos." Toph grinned. "Then why is he unconscious?" Ong asked confusedly. "Because he fought Azula and her little girl squad in a Redeed that threw him around like a ragdoll." Sokka explained, and Ong looked at Naruto's prone form in disbelief. They beat me and still fought the Fire Nation. Is that what a true master of Earth is capable of? Aang wondered inwardly. So? What about the drill? Aang asked and Sokka pointed over the wall. Take a look for yourself. Sokka said. Aang did so and peered over the wall, his eyes widened to the size of saucers from what destruction Naruto caused. The drill was submerged in lava that was still hot and he saw a ton of dense, blood and destroyed debris surrounding that area. What happened? Aang asked and Sokka shrugged his shoulders. I don't know. Sokka said. Out of nowhere Naruto tensed his hands on the futon and did a flare with his legs and kicked Katara away before jumping towards the nearest person which was Sokka and punched him, but the water tribeman ducked and went into a begging position. I'm sorry for dropping you, Earthbender Lord Ness, Sokka exclaimed and unintentionally dodged a kick from Naruto by bringing his head up to beg. Sokka noticed something. Hey, he's asleep. Sokka stated and Aang blasted Naruto outside. No. Aang, look, he's just sleeping. True to Sokka's words, Naruto was lying comfortably on the concrete with a sweat-drenched face. Katara made a place by his side with her hands bending water near his temples. He's having a nightmare about something. We have to wake him. Katara said and looked for Toph. Toph, you're an earthbender. How do you wake one who is unconscious? The waterbender asked. What? So you think just because I'm an earthbender means that I know how to wake him up? Toph asked and Katara looked at her funny. Yeah? Katara said. Toph then earthbended a bunch on earth pillars underneath Naruto. She then started stomping her feet hard. Ah, Toph, are you sure this is a good idea? Aang asked and Toph replied with. Don't worry, his rough skin won't be damaged. She yelled over the skin smacking earth noise. Naruto started stretching and sighed in relief, fully enjoying the rough wake-up call. He then rolled off the rock massage machine and fell on his face. Ah. That felt good. Naruto groaned while stretching more and a lot of cracks were heard. Naruto, you're awake. Katara gasped, not thinking Toph's methods would actually work. Naruto just walked past Katara and bowed to General Sung. It was an honor working with you. Naruto said his piece and walked outside. He walked past Aang and Katara, but he threw a rock at Toph who caught the stone. Practice hitting the rock. Naruto said, and the blind bandit tossed the rock away over the wall. The blonde earthbender then pointed at Sokka. Thank you for catching me before I fell. You are a leader that puts the safety of his squad before the mission. Naruto praised and Sokka stood straight in front of this adversary. He was a man with honor and a keen eye for people who had it. Hey, what about us? I could use a thank you for saving you. Katara stated with a twitching eyebrow. Who are you again? The Fang of the Earth King asked. I'm the girl that saved you. And I have a name. Katara crossed her arms. Naruto just stood there before continuing his walk. Well, Katara yelled. Hey, I don't know your name and frankly, I don't wanna know. I'm going back to my king's side. Naruto told the rest. Naruto, how did you know about lavabending? Aang asked seriously and with genuine curiosity. The monks taught me that the avatar could only lavabend. Aang stated. You must be referring to Sito. He mixed earth and fire. Well, I'm just controlling molten rock. That's it. There's no special story or any rare secret about lavabending. Naruto told him before jumping off the Great Wall into Ba Sing Sea. With Azula. After the failed attempt to conquer Ba Sing Sea, which was seized by Naruto, Azula called in a warship and dragged Menma back to the Fire Nation in a stretcher. Azula was also treating Menma's wounds. He had cracked metatarsals in his right hand, a broken rib and a concussion. Her face held a scowl while replacing the towel on Menma's burning head. Ty Lee was sitting on a bed next to theirs, they were staying in a common room on the warship. It was well furnished for a warship. Mai was sitting at the end of Ty Lee's bed, sharpening her knives with a bored expression. Naruto was a powerful adversary for Azula and her team, but Menma practically beat him, so that clearly means she can do it too. Right? Lala Azula. You sure are enjoying yourself over there. Ty Lee teased and Azula glared at her. Don't be foolish. I am just replacing the towel on Tomato's head. Azula lied with a small blush, almost unnoticeable to even Mai. I can see you blushing. Ty Lee continued teasing and Azula began getting sick of it. Enough of your childish nonsense. I am just doing what has to be done to nourish him back. Azula snapped and Ty Lee quieted down. Thank you. A few minutes passed. So, what's you and Menma's couple name? I'm thinking Menzela or Azuma. Ty Lee asked and Azula's cheeks flushed red and she covered her face. What about Azuman? Mai asked and Ty Lee wrapped an arm around her friend's neck. I know you like doing this type of stuff. Ty Lee inwardly and outwardly cheered. Azuman it is. Ty Lee proclaimed. Menma began moving. He went to punch Azula unconsciously, but she stopped him and lowered his hand down. Strange. He's asleep, right? Azula asked her two companions. Turning back, she was frightened when she saw Menma's body sitting up with an angry scowl. Ah. The three girls screamed. Two guardsmen that were behind the door busted through and shot fire at Menma, who they thought was an intruder. Menma combined their fire together to make a bigger flame and threw it back. They cowered away and Azula cancelled the fire with a swipe of her hand. "Menma, what are you doing?" Azula asked with an angry scowl on her pretty face. Ty Lee looked like she was touched by a ghost. Mai looked paler than one. "I lost," Menma said. Again. He continued and grabbed his armor next to his bedside and slid into it, readjusting the armor to fit his tastes. He left the room. "I must become stronger and defeat him," was what the girls heard. "Rude, he could have at least thanked me," Azula said and Ty Lee nodded with her. Yeah. He should have. Who cares? He's just being a sook because he got his butt handed to him," Mai said while cleaning her nails with her knife. But Zuko and Iroh, Lee and Mushy. In the refugee camp there was a ticket woman inspecting Zuko and Iroh's tickets. "So, Mr. Lee and Mr. Mushy, is it?" The ticket woman with a mole on her head. Iroh sweat drops. "It's pronounced Mushy," Mushy said matter-of-factly. The woman wore an annoyed scowl and went to accuse him. "You telling me how to do my job?" the ticket lady asked. Mushy approached the ticket booth and touched the woman's chubby hand. No. But may I just say you're like a flower in bloom. Your beauty is intoxicating." Mushy sent her a compliment. The ticket woman's expressions range from annoyance to flirtatiousness. "You're pretty easy on the eyes yourself, handsome. Rar. Welcome to Ba Sing Se." She stamped their tickets. Iroh thankfully takes the tickets and Zuko snatched his ticket with a disgusted look. "I'm going to forget I saw that," Zuko promised before walking away. Jet could be seen overlooking Zuko, now under the adopted alias Lee. "I think Lee would make a good freedom fighter. He's just trying to find his way in the world, like us," Jet said, full confidence in his choice of picking. "You don't know anything about him, Jet," Smellerby said, her hands on her hips. "I know he didn't get that scar from a waterbender," Jet said confidently. "Besides, I thought we were going straight now." Smellerby reminded Jet of his past actions. "We are, and the new freedom fighters could use a guy like Lee. What do you think, Longshot?" Jet asked his hat-wearing companion. Longshot looked at him silently with a meaningful look on his face and blinked his eyes. "I can respect that," Jet said. Jet and his friends were watching Lee and Mushy sitting at the train station. Zuko and Iroh. Jet approached them and sat next to Lee. "So, you guys got plans once you're inside the city?" Jet asked with folded arms. A tea seller walked by with his portable tea shop and offered hot tea. "Get your hot tea here. Finest tea in Ba Sing Se." The tea merchant hollered. Mushy waved his hand wildly. "Ooh. Jasmine please." Mushy gave his order and the tea shop owner poured him calming jasmine tea. He excitedly drank the tea before he grimaced at its repulsive taste. "Blah. Ugh, coldest tea in Ba Sing Se is more like it. What a disgrace," Mushy said in outrage. "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" Jet motioned Lee to follow him, which he reluctantly did so and followed the renegade. "You and I have a much better chance of making it in the city if we stick together. You want to join the freedom fighters?" The leader of the freedom fighters asked with a grin. "Thanks, but I don't think you want me and your gang," said the scarred prince, looking away with inner shame written on his face. "Come on, we made a great team by looting that captain's food. Think of all the good we could do for these refugees." Jet enticed, Lee walked back to his uncle. "I said no," Lee said with more tone in his voice. "Have it your way," Jet said. He catches sight of Mushy, who is sipping his now steaming hot tea, causing his eyes to widen in shock and realization. Lee, approaching Iroh, glances over his shoulder at Jet, who narrows his eyes and walks away. Angrily, he knocks the teacup out of Mushy's hand. "Hey!" Mushy yelped when the hot tea grazed his skin. Lee whispered between gritted teeth, "What are you doing firebending your tea?" For a wise old man, that was a pretty stupid move. Lee growled. "I know you're not supposed to cry over spilled tea," but he sniffled. "It's just so sad." Mushy whimpered. "Last call for Ba Sing Se," the head captain said into the intercom. Jet, who is storming toward the train, Longshot and Smellerby following close behind. "Jet, relax." So the old guy had some hot tea. Big deal. Smellerby shrugged. He heated it himself. Jet accused. "Those guys are firebenders." Jet accused again darkly. Mushy and Lee entered the train and took a seat surprisingly next to Ying and Dan's family. Noticing the baby, Mushy smiled grandfatherly. "What a handsome baby." Mushy coddled the baby. "Thank you," Ying said. Back with Naruto. Naruto was walking through the halls of the Earth King's palace. He nodded to the respected generals. He quietly knocked on the Earth King's doors, which were huge in size and money depth. "Come in," the Earth King shouted. Naruto opened the doors and walked to his leader and bowed. "Naruto, I almost thought you didn't make it. But how is that possible, right?" the Earth King joked. He did however see Naruto numerous wounds and frowned. Fire Nation mechanism. Exterminated. Naruto said with finality. Excellent. Report. The Avatar and his friend are in Ba Sing Se with their tour guide. Judy, I believe. Naruto surveyed. Naruto. I have an assignment for you. The Earth King said. And that would be? Naruto asked, standing up now. I want you to replace this Judy as their guide. Since I don't know this Judy, I want the Avatar and his friends to have proper surveillance by someone I handpicked. The Earth King said, momentarily removing his glasses to clean the lenses. Yes, your highness. They should be at their living place. Naruto said. Go at once. I want their every movement tracked. Earth King said as Naruto slipped into the ground. But Team Avatar. UD was explaining the rules of Ba Sing Se in a carriage with a bored and annoyed Ong, a curious Katara, a bored Sokka and a moody Toph. They were riding their carriage past the royal palace. What's in that building? Katara asked while looking at the royal palace. 3 men were standing in the gateway, wearing dark robes and wide-brimmed hats, turning their eyes toward the group, looking somewhat hateful at them. And who are the mean-looking guys in robes? Sokka asked and the Dai Li looked away. Inside is the royal palace. Those men are agents of the Dai Li, the cultural authority of Ba Sing Se. They are the guardians of all our traditions. Judy said cheerfully, her fake smile still on her face. Can we see the king now? Ong asked rather impatiently. Oh no, one doesn't just pop in on the Earth King. Judy undermined the importance of them needing to see the Earth King. The carriage stops at a small quaint house. We're home. Judy exclaimed. More good news. Your request for an audience with the Earth King is being processed and should be put through in about a month. Judy said joyfully. The team's jaws went slack and hung agape. Much more quickly than usual. A month? Sokka asked. 6 to 8 weeks. She corrected. I think I'll take it from here. A voice spoke behind them. Naruto walked in from behind them in a new attire. Sir Naruto. Judy greeted, sweat dripping down her head. Hello. I don't think we are formally acquainted. But I'm not one to greet people I don't know. I'm here for the Avatar. Naruto said and Judy stepped in front of the group. I'm sorry sir, but I am their guide. His Majesty said so himself. Judy proclaimed. Oh really? I guess I'll be on my way. Naruto walked back down the steps. Judy sighed, thinking it was over. Except for one thing, the king doesn't know who you are. So tell me, Judy. Who gave you this assignment to watch over the Avatar and his friends? Naruto asked with a slight edge to his tone. Judy can be seen sweating bullets, her eyes moving from left to right. It was Judy began saying until a mental thought entered her mind. You have been invited to Lake Lagai. Long Feng's voice appeared in her head. Her pupils slightly dilated and she began talking robotically. General Sung assigned me to the mission. Saying the Earth King wanted the Avatar's stay to be fruitful. I am only doing my job. Judy said. Welp, I'm here to take them off your hands. I am the king's right hand and I don't think you want to see an unhappy Earth King. Naruto taunted and Judy bowed her head. I'm sorry sir. They're all yours. Judy walked back into the carriage and went on with her day. How about we get something to eat? Naruto asked. Yes please. Sokka piped in enthusiastically. I could eat. Toph and Katara said. As long as it's not meat. Ong said. Then you might as well stay in. Naruto said and Ong's shoulders slumped. I'm kidding. They make more than just meat. Naruto said and everyone laughed but him. A squad of 6 were walking through a poorer part of the Earth Kingdom. Naruto was leading them to his household. It was by no means small, but it wasn't overly large either. Ong was a bit anxious about Naruto, even if they had kinship at one point in their lives, he did not trust him like his other friends. Katara was neutral when it came to Naruto, she wasn't really that keen on getting to know him, but she was curious why an earthbender would be studying under the water tribe, and she was also wondering what her master was thinking about having someone like Naruto to train. Sokka respected Naruto a lot from just their first exchange. He was given the honor he felt he deserved, he had been working so hard with his team, and they never gave him the credit he thought he earned, and inwardly and outwardly showed Naruto the respect he deserved. Toph didn't like him. She saw him as a phony for using that lava bending crap, she believed that one should only need one bending, and she thought lava bending was another bending. Naruto, where are we going? Sokka asked and as if on cue, his stomach rumbled. My apartment, I was gonna take you to Yakiniku-Q, but I changed my mind. Too much sound for my liking. Naruto said and arrived at a medium-sized house. This is where you live? Toph asked and Naruto nodded. It's a small place. Toph said. Oh no, my place isn't this place, it's actually underneath it. This is just there to throw people off. Naruto said. Toph crossed her arms. They all entered the small house and followed Naruto down a flight of steps in an underground establishment. The walls were constructed with earth pillars and wood with nails. Whoa. This looks awesome. Sokka wowed himself. Thanks. I'll whip up some ramen. What do you guys want? Naruto asked. Oh. Chicken with pork bones on the side. Sokka put his order in. Naruto raised a table with 6 earth chairs. I'll have beef and chicken please. Katara said, taking a seat on the chair. Toph jumped on the couch, her body sinking into the furniture. I'll just have miso with red bean soup please. Aang said, his torn clothes barely hanging to his body, and Naruto saw this. Go into my room, the first door on the right. On my bedside I have a spare change of clothes that I think you might like in the second drawer. Naruto said, and Aang did as instructed. 5 minutes later he returned with a new fashion choice. He stood with grey pants and black calf-length boots and a half-sleeve orange robe and a yellow one-sleeved underrobe, both on the left side, his right arm and shoulder showing. A red sash around his waist with 2 prayer beads hanging on the left side. Katara had a small pink tint to her beautiful face and felt her heartbeat quicken slightly. Toph didn't know what she was looking at. Sokka scoffed. I wouldn't mind a makeover. Sokka muttered, and Aang tightened the new threads. How do they fit? Naruto asked while placing their bowls of ramen down. They're amazing. Where did you get them from? Aang asked Naruto. I made them. I felt the need that someone I'd meet will need them. I guess that person was you. Naruto said, and sat on a chair in front of Toph with a bowl of miso pork ramen. Well, I just want to say, thank you. Aang said and bowed his head. Toph glanced at Naruto weirdly. What do you want? Toph asked while picking her nose with her pinky. I'm here to feed you. You can't see, can you? Naruto asked. The group died of laughter. This guy was seriously too much. What? Why would I want you to feed me noodles? Toph asked angrily. Ramen. Naruto corrected. Whatever it's called. Do you think I'm too helpless to eat ramen on my own? Toph asked. Is that a no? He asked. Yes, it's a no. Toph exclaimed, and Naruto placed the bowl of ramen in her lap. Enjoy your food then. Naruto said and took his place on the counter. Thank you for the food. Naruto prayed. So, Naruto, why did you want to serve under the Earth King? Katara asked, slurping up her noodles, really enjoying the flavor. Because, when I fled the Fire Nation I needed some money and I was walking around Ba Sing Se and saw a huge flyer saying come fight and earn your spot as the right-hand man of the Earth King. And I fought a bunch of big strongmen and Daily agents. After I got the position I met the Earth King and got the name the Fang of the Earth King from him. He said that the name was passed from previous Fangs who served the Earth Kings. I'm the 5th Fang, Naruto said, slurping up some noodles at the end. Weren't there more than 5 Earth Kings? Toph asked. Yes, but they didn't need bodyguards because they were strong earthbenders who would put these earthbenders to shame. Explained Naruto. Strong, and you have a cool name. Damn, how come we don't have a good name like that? Sokka laughed. In the corner Toph was having a bit of trouble with finding the chopsticks. She was a bit embarrassed to ask this. Katara. Can you help me eat this ramen? She asked with a small blush. Oh sure. Katara sat in the chair Naruto just made and took the bowl into her hands and broke the chopsticks off and began feeding Toph like a baby. Naruto, who was that retard that was being dragged away by Azula? Katara asked. Naruto winced a bit. He's my baby brother. Naruto said, everyone's eyes opened wide with their mouths falling. What? He asked the bunch. You have a brother? Aang asked, and the blonde-haired protagonist nodded. Yeah, what's the big deal about it? The blonde asked confusedly. Do you have any other family members in the Fire Nation? Katara asked, and Naruto nodded again. I do have a cousin, but they're a bit out of it. Naruto said, slurping some more noodles. Enough about me, I want to know why the Avatar is in my king city. Naruto spoke in an icy tone that sent chills up the backs of the people in his basement house. We're here to look for a friend. Katara sugared it down. No, we are here because of my flying bison. Aang said with a red face. He went missing while we were in Wan Shai Tong's library. Aang said, and Naruto chuckled. What's so funny? Sokka asked, and Naruto drank the broth and laid his ramen bowl down lightly. It's just that you probably made Wan Shai Tong angry. Naruto guessed. We were using his knowledge to plan against the Fire Nation. Sokka said, and Naruto placed a hand on his chin. This plan wouldn't be the eclipse now, would it? Naruto asked, and Sokka's eyes widened larger than saucers and his jaw dropped on the ground. How'd you know? I told you I went there. I found the plans for the eclipse. Naruto said while eating a piece of lone meat that was at the bottom of his ramen. Then you know how urgent we need to get this information to the Earth King. Sokka exclaimed, thinking that with Naruto's help they could get to have a meeting with the Earth King. Oh, he already knows. Naruto said while taking his bowl to the sink. What? Sokka, Katara, Toph and Aang screamed at the top of their lungs. What? Naruto asked. Sokka grabbed onto his collar and gave him a dirty look. Are you telling me that the Earth King knows about the solar eclipse? Sokka asked, his face squashed into Naruto's. Yes. But he doesn't have an invasion plan. I think that's when you'll have to come in. Naruto said, throwing Sokka down to the ground by his face. Really? Sokka asked, stars evident in his eyes. How about I help you look for this flying bison? Naruto asked and Ong pumped his fist with a grin on his face. Alright. Ong yelled, his yells waking some neighbors up. Shut up, will ya? The man next door screamed. Sorry. But Zuko and Iroh. Another part of the lower ring. Zuko Lee can be seen walking down the street. Mushy Iroh catches up to him from behind, holding a large vase with several orange flowers placed in it. Zuko stared coldly at the flower and Iroh Mushy. I just want our place to look nice, in case someone brings home a lady friend. He gives Zuko a nudge with his elbow. This city is a prison. I don't want to make a life here. Zuko said bleakly. Cuts to an overhead view of the street they are walking down. Life happens wherever you are, whether you make it or not. Iroh said wisely and patted his nephew's shoulder. Now come on, I found us some new jobs, and we start this afternoon. Iroh yipped excitedly. Jet could be seen trailing behind Zuko and Iroh as they walk away. Jet stared angrily at the two firebenders. Look at them, firebenders living right under everyone's nose. Jet sneered, his face contorted in rage. Longshot and Smellerbee walk up to Jet from an alley. Jet, you saw a man with a hot cup of tea. It doesn't prove he's a firebender. And what if he is, are we supposed to attack them? Smellerbee asked, her hands in a confused manner. I thought we were starting over here, changing our ways. Smellerbee reminded Jet of his promise to the freedom fighters. We are. When I get the evidence I need, I'll report them to the police and let them handle it. Jet said and walked forward a bit and turned his head to face the pair. Okay? He asked. Smellerbee and Longshot exchanged glances before nodding. A small tea shop in the lower ring was seen, with Jet leaning against the shop's wall. He turns around and peeks inside the window, spotting Zuko and Iroh speaking with the shop's owner. Well, you certainly look like official tea servers. Pow said with his eyes closed. How do you feel? Pow asks Zuko and Iroh who were wearing aprons. Iroh desperately attempts to tie the string behind his back, but his effort is in vain. Ridiculous. Zuko said, annoyed. Iroh can be seen still trying to tie the string for his apron. Does this possibly come in a larger size? Iroh asked. Pow put a finger to his chin and thought. I have extra string in the back. Have some tea while you wait. He said. Pow poured some tea in 2 cups, handed them to his new employees, and walked to the back of the shop. Iroh and Zuko take the tea gratefully, and Iroh takes a sip from his cup, but his face contorts in disgust. Blech. He spits the tea out and looks at it in disgust. This tea is nothing more than hot leaf juice. Iroh closely examines his cup. Uncle, that's what all tea is. Zuko spoke in an annoyed tone. Iroh looked at Zuko with something akin to anger or sadness. How could a member of my own family say something so horrible? Iroh asked. We'll have to make some major changes around here. Iroh angrily takes the teapot and heads over to the window Jet is spying through. Jet gasps and moves away just in time as Iroh dumps the tea out the window. Jet slowly stalks around the corner of the shop and leaves. Time skip night. Zuko and Iroh spent their whole day learning how to serve tea, and after a long day of work, Zuko and Iroh are living in some apartments that were given to them from Pow. Jet can be seen spying on Zuko and Iroh from a balcony in the shadows, hiding behind a clothesline in the apartment across theirs. Would you like a pot of tea? Iroh asked Zuko. We've been working in a tea shop all day. Zuko huffs while laying down. I'm sick of tea. Zuko said. Iroh took offense to this. Tea was his life, his calming place, and here his nephew was belittling it. Sick of tea? That's like being sick of breathing. Iroh compares and rummages through the cupboard beneath the counter, where he is standing. Have you seen the spark rocks to heat up the water? Iroh asked Zuko. Jet, who was sitting behind a clothesline, opened his hand showing some emerald-colored rocks. They're not there. You're gonna have to firebend, old man. Jet whispered to himself. Where are you going? He asked, seeing as Iroh walked from his spot by the counter. Humming back to the counter. I borrowed our neighbors. Such kind people. Iroh said with a kind voice. He strikes the rocks near a pile of twigs below the teapot and creates a flame. Jet, frustrated, ducks behind the clothesline and leaves. But Team Avatar. Naruto was sitting on the floor in a lotus position in front of Toph, who was listening to him carefully. He was coaching her in the art of lava bending. Sokka was sleeping on the bed that was formerly a couch with Katara and Ong sleeping on 2 hammocks hanging from the top level of the house. Lava bending is a rare ability because the earth is so far down that most benders can't feel it. But there's earth in lava, that's how I bend it. I bend the earth and in turn bending the lava. I can also phase change earth into lava. Naruto explained. He bent some earth to the surface and broke a piece off before phasing the earth into lava and that into a buzzsaw disc. Whoa. I can't see and I can feel the heat. Toph said and Naruto nodded. He placed his hands on the ground. Toph felt the motion and did the same. What are we doing? Toph whispered. Naruto shushed her. Shhh. Concentrate on the earth, feel for it. When you find it, seek for something more warm, more hot. Something far lower. Naruto said sagely. Toph began searching, looking for what he was looking for. She was sweating from the stress she was putting on her mental stability. Find the earth. Naruto whispered and Toph's eyes shot open when she felt something, in the corner a metal pipe slightly bent out of place. Naruto saw this and nodded. Betrayals, huh? Never thought of that. Naruto said in his mind. Toph lowered her head in anger at not finding the hot stuff Naruto was on about. I can't get it. I can't sense anything except for the stuff up here. She frustratedly said, her hands in her hair, trying in vain to pull her hair follicles out. Get some sleep. We have a big day ahead of us. Naruto said while making an earth bed for her. He walked to the nearest wall and laid down. Moving so his headband was sitting over his eyes. Early in the morning. Sokka woke up early, yawning and stretching. He patted his stomach and left the couch. He intended to leave outside, but didn't know where the exit was. He accidentally opened a door that he probably wasn't supposed to. He walked in and saw it was a dojo of some sort. He saw bokkens, wooden kunai and throwing stars that were wood. He was at a loss for words. He was in a training dojo. Morning. Someone said in the doorway. Sokka turned around and saw Naruto wearing a white tank top with black kung fu pants and tape around his ankles and calves. Good morning. Sorry for snooping, I was looking for the exit. Sokka said with a nervous chuckle. Naruto pushed him out of the way and went on his knees in front of a shrine. He motioned Sokka to join him. Sokka took a lotus position and twiddled his thumbs. The shrine was one of Avatar Kaioshin with the original Kaioshin warriors. Tell me about yourself, Sokka. Naruto said. Sokka's shoulders perked up. Well. My dad is the chief of my village of Wolf Cove in the Southern Water Tribe. My mom was alive. Sokka said somberly. Fire Nation I'm guessing? Naruto asked. Yeah. When my father left to help fight against the Fire Nation, I was left behind to watch over my tribe and protect Katara and the rest of the village. Sokka explained. Now that I know that, tell me more about you. What's your ambition? Naruto asked while lighting some candles. I want to prove myself. To show everyone even though I don't have a super cool bending or some arrows on my head, I can be relied on. Sokka said with his shoulders lowered. Naruto saw the state of the Water Tribe warrior. Recognition. You know. When I was in the Fire Nation, I couldn't use my bending for fear that would mean I'd get killed with the rest of my family. So when I saw my mom training my little brother, do you know what I did? Naruto asked. He was walking around Sokka the whole time walking and stood in front of the kunai and shuriken rack. I trained in the art of weaponry and the art of Naruto grabbed several stars and 3 kunai, he threw 5 shuriken and embedded them in the weapon board and threw 2 kunai and they struck the center of the board before he chucked the last kunai in the air and kicked it, it landed in the board as well. He entered the tiger stance. Close quarters combat. Or CQC for short. He said calmly. Sokka was starstruck. Standing up from his stance he grabbed a kunai and felt the craftsmanship before tossing it to Sokka. When I was young my father taught me how to fight. And now I'll teach you. Naruto proclaimed proudly. Sokka for one smiled brightly before his smile faded. I'm sorry, but I don't think you'd want to train someone like me. I have nothing special about me. I'm not strong, smart or have any bending. How can I be worthy to train? Sokka asked with his head down. You're right. How can you be worthy? Naruto asked. He then grabbed a wooden sword from the sword rack and swung it at Sokka who stopped the strike with the kunai Naruto gave him. Naruto kicked Sokka's hands up and swung his sword again, but Sokka did a roly-poly backwards and blocked the sword with his water tribal club. Naruto used his superior strength and pushed Sokka over and performed an overhead strike. Sokka stood up fully and smashed his club against the sword before his legs were swept from under him. Naruto went to hit him with the sword until. Snap. Sokka reopened his eyes and saw Naruto's sword broken from the hilt. Naruto helped him up. That's how I know you're worthy. Naruto said. How? Sokka asked and Naruto picked up the broken sword. You're right. You don't have anything special about you. But that's what makes you special, you don't have any special qualities, but you do have grit and passion in who you are. Naruto said and put a hand on Sokka's shoulder. Imagine this, everyone suddenly lost their bending, how the world would go out of balance, but you will be the same. You will keep your gifts and people will look to you for guidance. The blonde explained. Sokka started crying when he heard this, no one besides his father believed in his abilities and Naruto praised him for it. He furiously rubbed his eyes before looking at Naruto brightly, he bowed. Thank you, Master Naruto. Naruto for one showed a little smile before karate chopping Sokka on the head. The master, Naruto is fine. Naruto said and Sokka grinned from ear to ear. Okay, thank you Naruto. Sokka bowed. Now as your first lesson, clean up my dojo. A bunch of wood was spread out from you smashing it. Naruto said and Sokka fell over. I'll fix up breakfast. Naruto said and left the dojo. Welp, let's get to work. Sokka said and grabbed every piece of wood. Naruto was making rice porridge with the help of Sokka who was doing push-ups. 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 6 quack. Sokka fell on his stomach. He was tasked to do 100 push-ups before Naruto finished breakfast. If he didn't then he'd have to complete 500 sit-ups before he finished lunch. And you were so close. Such a shame. Naruto said and Sokka's eyes gained a fire that could put Sazens to shame. He ran through 41 easily and jumped straight up. Ah, just in time for breakfast. The blonde earthbending master said. He gave Sokka a blowhorn. Here, wake everyone up. Naruto tasked. Okay. He blew the horn loudly, Toph's limbs were spread out, Aang and Katara fell off their hammocks, and Momo, who was sleeping on the arm of the couch, jumped on the ceiling with a frizzy tail. Sokka, why are we up so early? Katara groaned. Rise and shine, little sister, we're gonna have a big breakfast before going to ask around the city for clues to Appa's location. Sokka exclaimed. Aang jumped from his sprawled out position with determination in his eyes. Katara did the same and Toph just laid there, her face on the floor. Blame me oh Hotman. Aang yipped, his arms in the air. Blame me oh? Sokka asked. It was a form of greeting in the Fire Nation, it's been outdated, like, 100. Naruto informed. Let's have breakfast. Aang said. Naruto handed 3 servings to Katara, Aang and Sokka. Hey, what about me? Toph asked, Naruto threw a genomite rock at her. Eat up. Naruto said. Toph took a bite from the rock and instantly fell in love. Hey, that's genomite. Sokka voiced. Yup, or known as creeping crystal and it's also made from rock candy. Naruto explained while eating his portion of rice porridge from the pot. This is good. Katara praised and Aang agreed with a head nod. Time skip afternoon. Momo jumps on a bowl of food tied to a pole and starts to eat, but is scared by a cat owl. Team Avatar, accompanied by Naruto, is in a pet store and speaking with the owner at the counter. I'm sorry, but I haven't heard anything about a flying bison. I didn't even know there were any. The pet store owner told the group. Aang's shoulders lowered a bit. If someone wanted to sell a stolen animal without anyone knowing, where would they go? Katara asked. Sokka got in the man's face, slightly frustrated. Where's the black market? Who runs it? Sokka asked while pointing at him accusingly. Come on, you know. He continued to interrogate, the man started sweating bullets and looked at Naruto. The pet store owner looked at Naruto for confirmation who gave it. Okay. But come closer. The man whispered, Aang and Sokka squashed their faces together to get in his face. The black market is an illegal organization that was shut down by the Dai Li, King's rules. They recently came back into business as a circus that has a firebender as its figurehead, or their leader. The pet owner explained, shocking the team of friends. They did send animals with some of the workers talking about a wind buffalo with an arrow on its head. The owner told the group who gasped. Which circus? Naruto asked and the owner sweated slightly. I can't tell you that. The pet owner said. Aang used his airbending to drag the owner out from the counter. What do you mean you can't tell us? Aang asked angrily. Naruto grabbed his shoulder roughly. Avatar. Let him go, he's told you all he knows. Naruto said. He knows where Appa is. Tell me, now. Aang shouted and his tattoos and eyes began flickering white. He probably does, but we can't force him to speak. Naruto said and Aang was ignoring him. Where is my bison? Aang asked the store owner, he started levitating the man higher. Where is he? An avatar state-induced Aang shouted. Naruto roughly threw Aang out of the shop, far, making him land in a pile of hay, in doing so dropped the shop owner who hid behind his desk. Remember whose city you're in. Naruto shouted. His temper was rising like an active volcano and he was getting sick of Aang's attitude, him throwing his avatar state around like it's a toy and expecting people would yield to him is starting to piss him off. Naruto. Leave him alone. Katara yelled. No. He has to understand that we can't just harass people who have info about his flying buffalo. Naruto said and Aang bursted out from the hay bales in a gale of wind and was thrusted towards Naruto. Naruto encased his arm in earth and grabbed Aang with the earth on his arm before choke slamming him into the ground, locking him in place. See, unstable. Naruto said and ripped his hand out of the earth, but Aang stayed there. Aang calmed down and deactivated the avatar state and saw the havoc he made from just lifting the owner up. The birdhouses were destroyed from falling over and their food spread out across the floor. I'm sorry sir. Ong apologized sincerely. The owner peeked out from his hiding spot. It's okay. But who's gonna pay for all of this? The shopkeeper yelled. Naruto threw 5,000 yuan in his face. Pay your shop with that. Naruto then roughly grabbed Ong by the collar and pulled him out of the earth. He walked out while carrying Ong around. Ba Sing Se University. The scene fades to an overhead shot of Ba Sing Se University and cuts to Naruto, Sokka and Toph standing in front of a student. A few students are walking around. I've never seen any sandbenders or nomads around here. The university student states. You should ask Professor A, he teaches the class on desert cultures. The student explained. Sokka didn't look happy at not getting the information he wanted. Right. And which of your professors could we ask about the war with the Fire Nation? Sokka asks the university student who was nervously sweating. The student looks at Naruto, behind Sokka, who shakes his head at him. Sokka notices this from the corner of his eye, but he quickly stops before he can see it fully. The student stands up and goes away, but trips, dropping his scrolls. He quickly picks them back up and hurries to go. Let's go, Sokka. Naruto walks away with Team Avatar following. Why did you make us leave? He would have told us. Sokka said. It's illegal to talk about the war. I'll tell you later, let's regroup with the Avatar and the water girl. Naruto told the group. Her name's Katara. Toph informed. Yes, her. Naruto said. They arrived back at Team Avatar's house some time later and noticed Katara holding a scroll. Hey, check this out. Katara got the attention of Sokka who grabbed the scroll. The king is throwing a celebratory party for his pet bear. Sokka read the following. Visitors are allowed entry into the royal party but have to hold invitations. Sokka finished. Oh, I forgot about the party. I have to attend as my king's right-hand man. Naruto said. Wait, do you think we could attend? Ong asked. Sure, but you guys have to behave yourselves. Especially you. Naruto pointed to Sokka. Why me? Sokka pointed to himself to show emphasis. Because, you'd probably pick a fight with Bosco for his food. Naruto said and Team Avatar fell on their butts laughing. And besides, you guys don't have manners. Naruto's statement was backed by Toph's head nod and Katara took it personally. I don't have manners. I'm the girl in the group with the most manners. Katara proclaimed with a huff and arms crossed. Yes, you are. But you don't know how to shut your mouth. Naruto said and ducked under a water whip. My point proven. Ahahaha. Toph and Sokka laughed, holding their sides, their feet kicking in humor. What? What's so funny? Katara asked, her face contorted into annoyance. Toph and her might be able to get in, but that's a big might. Toph, teach the water tribe girl manners. I'll let you guys in out back. Naruto ordered and left via earth submergence. I don't get what he means. I have manners. Ong says before he grabs a nearby curtain and puts it around himself like a noble's robe and talks in a very sophisticated manner. Good evening Mr. Sokka Water Tribe, Ms. Katara Water Tribe, Lord Momo of the Momo Dynasty. Your Momo-ness. Ong speaks in his posh accent. Momo peeks at Ong from under the carpet and slightly bows in respect. Sokka stands up also wearing a curtain like a robe. Mimicking a typical high-class person. Avatar Ong, how do you do? Go on. Sokka jokingly says. Ong bowed to Sokka and Sokka, trying to outdo Ong's bow, bows back. Ong tries to further out Sokka's bow with a deeper bow and Sokka returns this bow with an even deeper bow. Both of them try to bow at the same time, but they knock each other's foreheads together and fall down. Toph walks toward Katara stating this. Katara might be able to pull it off, but you two would be lucky to pass as busboys. She says and Sokka can be seen on the floor rubbing his sore forehead. But I feel so fancy. He says until his goofy face turns into one of annoyance when he feels Toph's snot embed itself on his forehead. The scene changes to a time of dusk where Sokka and Ong are playing a game. Water, earth, fire, air was what the game was called or elements. They bobbed their fists a few times before throwing them out and opening them. Earth. Ong yells while his hand stayed in the clenched fist while Sokka's was open with his fingers wiggling. Fire. Sokka groaned while Ong held his hands up in victory while grinning triumphantly, flicking Sokka's head hard. Katara and Toph enter the room from a door, wearing makeup, exquisite Earth Kingdom dresses, and holding a fan each. Toph and Katara stare at the boys calmly before giving in to a fit of giggles. Ong blushes and stares dreamily at the sight of Katara. Wow, you look beautiful. Ong said with a goofy grin and got flicked for his efforts, courtesy of Sokka. Katara opens her mouth to reply to Ong's compliment but is stopped by Toph placing her fans in front of her mouth. Don't talk to the commoners, Katara. First rule of society. Toph says before taking Katara's hands and guides outside. We'll get in the party and then find a way to let you in through the side gate. Katara promised, completely forgetting that Naruto will let them in. The sound of a gong is heard as Momo walks past them, wearing one of the curtains as a cape. Aang looks at Sokka, who merely shrugs. Iroh and Zuko's tea shop. Cut to outside the tea shop where Iroh and Zuko are working. An Earth Kingdom guard walks in through the door. Jet is shown to be spying on the shop from an alley. Jet's face contorted with an expression of suspicion. Smellerbee and Longshot walk up behind Jet. "Jet, we need to talk," Smellerbee said, Jet's head whipped around in surprise. "What? Oh great, it's you guys. Where have you been?" Jet leaned back on the alleyway wall in case he was spotted. "I could use some help with surveillance here," he told the two freedom fighters in a semi-hushed tone. "We've been talking. And we think you're becoming obsessed with this. It's not healthy," she said in concern. Jet looked at her and Longshot in surprise. "Oh, really? You both think this?" he asked where Longshot wrapped an arm around Smellerbee's shoulder in agreement with her statement. "We came here to make a fresh start. But you won't let this go. Even though there is no real proof," Smellerbee reasoned. "Well, maybe if you'd help me," Jet said. "Jet, you gotta stop this," Smellerbee said as she was starting to worry for her leader. "Maybe you've forgotten why we need to start over," Jet said. Longshot and Smellerbee looked down, guiltily. "Maybe you've forgotten about how the Fire Nation left us all homeless. How they wiped out all the people we loved." He reminded them. "If you don't want to help me, I'll get the evidence on my own," he promises and marches toward the tea shop. Inside the shop. "This is the best tea in the city." The customer praised Iroh's magnificent brew of tea. Iroh closed his eyes and let the steam from the tea engulf him. "The secret ingredient is love." He waves a hand through the steam coming from the teapot and walks toward the back of the shop where the owner is, while Zuko gives him a disgusted look. Ao was seen surveying the shop and was impressed by the increase in income. "I think you're due for a raise," Ao told Iroh. Suddenly the front door was slammed open with a fuming Jet furiously stomping in. "I'm tired of waiting." Jet sneers venomously while pointing an accusing finger at Iroh and Zuko. "These two men are firebenders." Jet unsheathes his hook swords and prepares to fight. Iroh and Zuko quickly exchange looks, not knowing what to do. "I know they're firebenders, I saw the old man heating his tea." Jet pleaded his case, but the Earthbenders looked at him bleakly. "He works in a tea shop," he says with doubt evident in his tone. "He's a firebender. I'm telling you," Jet shouts. The Earth Guard stands up from his seat, along with another man. "Drop your swords, boy. Nice and easy," he said while reaching for his swords on his belt. "You'll have to defend yourself. Then everyone will know." Jet points his swords at Zuko in an attempt to frighten him. "Go ahead, show them what you can do." Jet slowly walks toward Zuko and Iroh with his swords. Just as one of the guards was about to draw his swords, Zuko steps in front and grabs them instead. "You want a show? I'll give you a show." Zuko unsheathes the customer's broadswords and enters a fighting stance. He pulls a table in front of him with his foot and kicks it at Jet, who slices the table with his swords and jumps over it. As he lands, he swings both hook swords at the Fire Nation prince, who deflects the attack and jumps backward onto another table, which is sliced in half by Jet, swinging a sword through the middle of the table. Zuko steps onto one half of the table and balances on one foot. Jet continues his attack by cutting the legs on the half of the table Zuko is standing on. Zuko quickly jumps up, and as he lands, he swings both broadswords at Jet's feet, and Jet somersaults away and lands in a crouching position before charging forward at Zuko again. Zuko swings both of his swords at Jet, who went to block. Jet blocks the broadswords before pushing the swords outwards, leaving Zuko defenseless, and hooked his foot before swinging him out through the door. Jet runs after him and strikes at Zuko with both swords. Zuko defends the strike, and both combatants lock swords. Jet gives Zuko a sinister grin before saying, "You must be getting tired of using those swords," he states. Zuko held a look of annoyance. "Why don't you go ahead and firebend at me?" Jet asks sarcastically. "Please, son, you're confused. You don't know what you're doing." Iroh shouts out to Jet but went unheard. Zuko breaks the clash before swinging at Jet, but Jet stops Zuko's broadsword with the ends of his hook swords, spins around and deflects it to the side. The Fire Nation prince spins with his swords and tries to counterattack, but Jet hooks the ends of his swords together and begins to swing them at Zuko in large circular motions. Zuko retreats back a few steps to defend himself. "Bet you wish she'd help you out with a little fire blast right now." Jet mocked and swung at Zuko's feet. Zuko stabs one of his broadswords through the hilt, pinning it to the ground. Jet looks at it with annoyance before focusing back on Zuko. "You're the one that needs help." He bites back. Both the combatants lose a sword and continue fighting with only one. He turns in a circle and tries to swipe at Zuko, but Zuko quickly advances and swings his sword at Jet. Jet pulls his attack just in time to bend backward and avoid Zuko's blade, cutting the straw sticking out of Jet's mouth in half. Jet regained his balance and jumped backward onto the edge of a well. "You see that, Jet?" asked the crowd before continuing. "The Fire Nation is trying to silence me," Jet proclaimed and stared venomously at Zuko and Iroh. "It'll never happen." Jet begins to attack again, hooking his sword to the top of the well and sending a flying kick toward Zuko. Back with Team Avatar. Aang and Sokka are seen, standing back to back, fully dressed as busboys, serving refreshments to the guests of the party. Aang begins pouring a drink while Sokka is serving food to people who pass by. A little worried. "Where's Katara and Toph?" Aang asked. You see, when Katara and Toph arrived at the palace, they were turned away for not having an invitation, and they soon got assistance from Long Feng, and he guided them inside and never left their sides. "Forget about them. Just keep an eye out for the king." He grows slightly annoyed as Momo's tail, which has been sticking out of Aang's hat, begins to wag in his face. "I don't know what he looks like," Aang told Sokka, who shrugged his shoulders. "You know, royal flowing robes, fancy jewelry," he says before he grabs Momo's tail, still wagging in his face, and vigorously stuffs it back into Aang's hat. Aang looks around the room to show the party guests, all fitting Sokka's description. They are all adorned in fancy flowing robes and headpieces, chatting and eating food. "That could be anyone," he frustratedly said. The scene changes to Toph walking behind them with grace and allegiance. Trying to speak in a fancy voice. "Another crab puff, please," Toph requested, and Sokka bowed to eye level with her and lowered the pallet of food. "You found us," Aang said, and Toph crossed her arms with a smirk. "I'd know your little footsteps anywhere, twinkle toes," Toph said, fully confident with her seismic ability. Katara catches up to the group and Aang blushes when he sees her. Opening his eyes, realizing who they are. Sarcastically said. "Thanks for letting us in," he said with an eyebrow raise. "Sorry, but the guy who escorted us in won't let us out of his sight," Katara tells them. Team Avatar looks out to show all of the party guests, none of which seem to be following them. A slightly confused Sokka, not seeing anyone following them, confusedly says. "What guy?" he asks, and Juti approaches the group and is anxious to see them. "What are you doing here? You have to leave immediately or we will be in terrible trouble," Juti said while Sokka put an arm on her shoulder. "We don't know what you're talking about, Juti. We're here for the party just like you." Sokka lied, laughing at the end at Juti's expression. "You don't understand. You must go." Juti shoves Sokka off her and onto Aang, causing him to spill the water inside the pitcher he was carrying on a guest. All the guests' attention is now focused on Aang. Juti's large, happy smile quickly turns sour and is replaced by a frown and a look of dread. Aang looks around at the guests as Momo hides back under the hat on the floor and slinks away. Aang blushes and waves at the crowd, laughing nervously as Sokka leans in toward Aang. "You keep their attention while I look for the king with a plan," Sokka whispered to the bald boy. He got their attention. "Watch this, everybody." Aang jumps out of his busboy clothes and lands on the long dining table as Sokka walks off into the crowd. Aang swings his arms over the guests' drinks, waterbending the liquid out of the cups. He jumps onto a pitcher and balances on top of it while continuing to waterbend. Aang brings the liquid above his head and creates a swirling multicolored ball. The crowd cheers and claps as he spins around. Bosco growls with delight at Aang's antics. Back at the tea shop. Outside the tea shop, Zuko and Jet were still fighting, it seems. Zuko growls as he swings his sword at Jet, who dodges the attack. He moves on to Zuko's side and they end up back to back. Zuko and Jet attempt to strike the opponent behind them, but neither can get past the other's defense. Two Dai Li agents walked into the fray. "Drop your weapons," the Dai Li agent on the left ordered. Zuko and Jet step away and face each other. Zuko lowers his sword as Jet points his at Zuko and Iroh. "Arrest them, they're firebenders," Jet ordered. "This poor boy is confused, we're just simple refugees," Iroh said. Ao points at Jet accusingly. "This young man wrecked my tea shop and assaulted my employees." Pao yelled and the customer from earlier came to Pao's claim and Iroh and Zuko's defense. "It's true, sir, we saw the whole thing. This crazy kid attacked the finest tea maker in the city," the customer said. "Oh, that's very sweet," Iroh said with a small blush. The two Dai Li agents walk up to Jet, who looks at them angrily. The Dai Li agent on the right says. "Come with us, son." Jet swings his hook sword at the agent, who catches the sword with his rock gloves. The guard disarms Jet and both guards pull the boy's arms behind his back, binding his wrists together using their rock gloves. Jet was seen being dragged away toward a wagon designed for holding captured criminals. "You don't understand. They're Fire Nation. You have to believe me," Jet shouted. The crowd begins to disperse. Jet was in the wagon on his knees as he looked up as the doors were shut. The people left in the street watched the wagon go away. Longshot and Smellerby look on, hidden within the crowd, and silently walk out of sight. Time skip a couple weeks age. And Team Avatar's place of stay in Ba Sing Se, where Sokka is drawing inaccurate pictures of Appa for missing posters. Katara and Aang enter. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.